Hey Spurs fans, welcome back to another update on our San Antonio Spurs. Before we jump into today's breaking news, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. That way, you'll never miss the latest stories, big announcements, and exclusive Spurs coverage. The instant the San Antonio Spurs released a mysterious 12-second teaser on their social platforms. Nothing more than a slow, atmospheric sweep of the AT&T Center rafters, punctuated by a single echoing thump that felt like the heartbeat of a giant awakening. The NBA world erupted in speculation, as if the franchise had just pressed a hidden button capable of sending shockwaves through insiders, analysts, and fan bases across the league, all of whom scrambled to decipher what the organization was plotting until the climactic reveal shattered all expectations. San Antonio had landed Nick Claxton, the defensive cornerstone of the Brooklyn Nets, in a move so stunning and abrupt that it reconfigured the entire competitive landscape almost instantly. From a moment whispers of the acquisition surfaced, long before the Spurs officially confirmed the news, the basketball ecosystem plunged into a frenzy, with debate shows igniting, podcasts spiraling into emergency episodes, and social media feeds overflowing with disbelief, particularly because San Antonio managed to execute the deal in near-total secrecy. A rarity in a league where most negotiations leak prematurely, highlighting just how committed the Spurs front office is to constructing the perfect supporting architecture around Victor Wembanyama through carefully calculated, razor-sharp decision-making. As the cryptic teaser faded into silence, and the franchise finally dropped Claxton's name, the collective shock became palpable, given that few imagined Brooklyn would part with its elite rim protector and one of the most mobile defensive big men in the league. Yet behind-the-scenes circumstances had aligned, philosophical disagreements, shifting timelines, and Claxton's own desire for a clear developmental pathway, all creating an opening that transformed an improbable scenario into a masterstroke for San Antonio. Spurs fans reacted with an eruption of euphoria, so overwhelming that the hashtag Claxton to the Spurs catapulted into the global trending list within minutes, reflecting both the fanbase's long-brewing hunger for a bold roster move and the recognition that Popovich had just gained a weapon capable of redefining the team's defensive infrastructure, signaling that the organization's rebuild around Wembanyama was not merely theoretical. It was accelerating with decisive intent. For the Nets, Claxton's departure immediately raised questions about the trajectory of their own long-term plan, but insiders suggest the player had quietly expressed his desire to seek an environment with clearer structure, stability, and continuity, qualities that the Spurs possess in abundance, thanks to a system built on decades of discipline and long-range vision rather than short-term improvisation. Almost instantly, analysts pivoted to studying the tactical implications of pairing Claxton with Wembanyama, theorizing that the combination of two unusually fluid bigs, both capable of switching onto smaller players, covering vast swaths of defensive territory and shutting down interior lanes, could produce one of the most imposing defensive duos the modern NBA has seen. A futuristic echo of the Duncan Robinson era, but infused with a level of agility and biomechanical versatility never before, combined in a single frontcourt. With Claxton sharing the paint with Wembanyama, Popovich now commands a defensive arsenal capable of distorting opposing offenses, as both players excel at turning straightforward drives into contested nightmares, leveraging length, timing, and mobility to force opponents into rushed decisions, errant passes, and low-percentage shots, ultimately forming a defensive geometry that defies conventional schemes. Offensively, Claxton's arrival also adds depth layered with nuance, as he is among the league's most efficient vertical threats. An elite lob finisher whose presence creates gravity near the rim, opening new lanes and spacing dynamics that allow Wembanyama to explore his game further away from the paint, where he thrives with his creativity, shot-making, and evolving perimeter skill set. For San Antonio's young guards, particularly Trey Jones and Blake Wesley, Claxton's screening, rolling, and timing provide a new dimension in the pick-and-roll game, granting them passing windows that previously did not exist and enabling the offense to operate at a faster, more fluid tempo, injecting precisely the level of dynamism the team has long lacked. In Brooklyn, whispers suggest Claxton sometimes felt the burden of anchoring a defense without the offensive system to complement his skill set, and that he yearned for a structure that could unlock more of his all-around game. Something San Antonio has a track record of providing to players with defensive instincts and high basketball IQ. His impact, however, transcends measurable statistics. Coaches and analysts frequently emphasize how Claxton alters plays simply by being in the vicinity, transforming high-percentage rim attempts into heavily contested improvisations, a skill that becomes exponentially more destructive when paired with Wembanyama's generational instincts and expansive radius of influence. Now, in San Antonio, a larger narrative takes shape, one of revival and strategic clarity, marking the moment when a rebuilding franchise shifts from merely collecting talent to engineering a sustainable winning identity, with Popovich himself praising Claxton as the kind of player who expands the excellence of everyone around him, a remark that carries tremendous weight from a coach known for understatement. Reports out of the Spurs training sessions, already described as unusually intense for this stage of the season, suggest that the team is buzzing with renewed purpose, and Claxton's defensive discipline, communication skills, and timing are expected to elevate players like Jeremy Sochan, Devin Vassell, and Malachi Branham, accelerating their development under a structured yet demanding environment. Many observers anticipated that the Spurs would pursue a high-profile guard or wing as their next roster addition, but the decision to bolster the frontcourt with Claxton reveals a more intricate strategy, one that prioritizes defensive identity as the foundation before layering offensive components on top, embodying the timeless Popovich philosophy that defense is the skeleton upon which championships are built. Tactically, Claxton grants Popovich an expanded universe of experimental lineups, enabling the Spurs to test defensive shells where Claxton and Wembanyama alternate responsibilities, share ball-handling duties in transition, or engage in hybrid schemes that confuse even the most polished offensive units in the league, providing San Antonio with unpredictable tools rarely available to young teams. Emotionally, the move sends an unmistakable message to Wembanyama. The organization is committed to building a competitive core around him immediately, not down the line, reinforcing that his development will be supported, protected, and maximized, eliminating any notion that he must carry an oversized burden at this early stage of his career. Inside the locker room, players reportedly greeted the announcement with genuine excitement, recognizing that Claxton belongs to the rare category of teammates who bring both competence and calm, a stabilizing force who elevates team culture simply by embracing disciplined, team-first basketball. In many ways, the acquisition fits the Spurs' long tradition of strategic excellence. Reminiscent of past moves where underappreciated or miscast players were reimagined inside Popovich's system and blossomed into cornerstone contributors, reinforcing the franchise's identity as a laboratory where intelligent basketball evolves into elite basketball. While the Spurs possess the resources to chase flasher names, their decision to prioritize a player who addresses systemic issues, particularly rim protection, switchability, and defensive versatility, signals a deep understanding of the long-term puzzle they are assembling around Wembanyama, whose presence demands complementary pieces rather than redundant ones. Defensively, the Spurs now project to experience an immediate leap, as many of their previous struggles, overhelping, vulnerability to interior scoring, and breakdowns against aggressive slashers, are likely to dissipate in the presence of two towering disruptors who can anchor, switch, and recover with rare synchronicity. Even the marketing side of the organization executed the reveal with masterful finesse, leveraging minimalism to amplify suspense and crafting an atmosphere that reflects the modern entertainment-driven NBA landscape, where narrative presentation enhances the impact of major roster moves. Behind the scenes, sources suggest that Popovich's direct involvement in the final stages of negotiation underscores his conviction not only in Claxton's basketball fit, but in his temperament, professionalism, and humility, qualities that remain essential pillars in the Spurs' organizational DNA. Claxton's individual attributes, his fluid lateral movement, impeccable timing as a shot contester, and uncanny understanding of defensive angles, combined to create a rare prototype, a big man who protects the rim with authority, yet moves on the perimeter with the instincts of a wing, an ideal counterpart to Wembanyama's multidimensional skill set. Offensively, Claxton's ball-handling improvement and ability to deliver sharp short-roll passes give Popovich new tactical avenues, allowing the Spurs to design motion sets with more complexity, relying on quick decision-making, constant movement, and layered reads instead of static isolation play. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support keeps our Spurs coverage strong and brings you the latest updates straight from San Antonio. And jump into the comments. Tell us what you think about today's news. Another important factor is Claxton's personal hunger, as many around the league believe he has long been overshadowed despite his elite defensive impact. And now, with increased responsibility and a system built to extract every ounce of his potential, he will have the stage necessary to demonstrate his full capabilities. Spurs fans, who have embraced the Wembanyama era with cautious optimism, now see this move as an unmistakable sign that the organization is accelerating toward contention, blending youth with targeted experience rather than depending solely on long-term projection charts or gradual incremental growth. This acquisition also repositions San Antonio within the NBA ecosystem, signaling to players, agents, and executives that the franchise is ready to move aggressively and intelligently when opportunities arise, contrasting with the slower, more passive approach of the last few seasons. Analysts already imagine the Spurs' defense climbing into the league's elite tier within a short span, driven by a front court that can suffocate drives, erase angles, and force opponents into uncomfortable offensive patterns, generating a defensive identity that rivals historically dominant units. Some around the league speculate that Popovich, energized by Wembanyama's arrival, may feel revitalized by the addition of Claxton, prolonging his coaching tenure to oversee the early chapters of this newly emerging era and to ensure that its foundation is constructed with precision. Conference rivals expressed immediate unease online, acknowledging that facing San Antonio will now involve navigating a labyrinth of length and athleticism rarely concentrated in a single lineup, forcing recalibrations of scouting reports and offensive structures previously considered reliable. Beyond tactics, Claxton adds emotional equilibrium, a quiet, focused, and disciplined presence whose influence extends inside film rooms, huddles, and practice sessions, contributing to the cultural backbone essential for long-term success and reminiscent of the Spurs' greatest historical teams. For Wembanyama, the relief of sharing the defensive burden cannot be overstated, as Claxton's presence allows him to expand his offensive creativity without being drained by constant interior battles, preserving his body and mind for the long journey that awaits him as a future franchise legend. The budding partnership between the two big men is poised to become one of the league's most intriguing storylines, given their complementary frames, shared humility, and instinctive feel for the game, which together create the foundation for a duo that may evolve into the league's next great defensive and possibly generational frontcourt pairing. The broader impact of the acquisition also positions San Antonio as an increasingly attractive destination for future stars, as players around the league take note of a franchise blending timeless discipline with modern innovation, crafting a competitive ecosystem that values both culture and excellence. Critically, Claxton transforms the Spurs from a team with potential into one with tangible competitive presence, especially if Popovich accelerates his integration and leverages his synergy with the existing young core, driving the team toward a higher tier of relevance sooner than expected. As the announcement reverberates worldwide, the Spurs front office remains composed, aware that while this move is monumental, it is merely the first in a sequence of calculated steps designed to re-establish the franchise not only as a perennial contender, but as a standard-bearer of smart, forward-thinking team building. Ultimately, the shockwave created by Claxton's arrival stems not only from its surprise factor, but from its symbolism. The Spurs are no longer dormant, no longer patient to a fault. They are ascending with purpose, reclaiming the assertiveness that once defined their dynastic years. And now, with Nick Claxton stepping into the iconic black and silver, San Antonio delivers a thunderous declaration to the NBA. The sleeping giant has awakened, armed with youth, intelligence, versatility, and ambition, ready to craft a new golden chapter in its storied legacy, one that begins now and will echo through the league for years to come. That's it for today's update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of every exclusive San Antonio Spurs news drop, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And don't forget, your opinion matters to Spurs Nation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.